Welcome, I'm delighted to be here with you again as always. In today's book review session, my book of the day comes from someone that I have a lot of respect for, someone that I consider to be a personal mentor, someone who has influenced my life, my growth, my development, and the person I've become today. I'm talking about no other than the very Jim Rohn. The book of the day is 7 Strategies to Wealth and Happiness by Jim Rohn. If you are familiar with personal development, if you are a student of the art of personal growth and development, then you've probably come across the name Jim Rohn. If you haven't, I think it's probably worth maybe 5-10 minutes of your time and just do some search. He has a lot of videos on YouTube and he's written a number of books. Jim is someone considered to be one of the most impactful speakers and motivational speakers and educators of our time. He's considered as a great philosopher. In the 70s and 80s and even down to the 90s, his seminars and his teachings and his philosophies about life and business and how to live a great life transformed what we now consider to be the personal development industry. The likes of Tony Robbins, who is, I think in my opinion, probably the most successful personal development teacher, speaker of our time, was a student of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was his mentor. Tony worked for Tony from one of his offices, ran one of Jim's offices, and Tony speaks very highly of Jim. A lot of the other people we know about, Les Brown, some of the big players, the likes of Tom Hopkins, the likes of I'll probably say I think it wouldn't be wrong for me to assume that anyone who has been influential between the 70s and the late 90s within the area of personal development was heavily influenced by Jim Rohn. A lot of the great speakers you know about, if you listen to them, you hear a lot of Jim Rohn's philosophies and a lot of his teachings. A lot of what we hear today is Jim Rohn's message being repackaged and passed on. Dennis Waitley was a big, I would say, student of Jim Rohn. They were also friends. Brian Tracy, they were also friends. But a lot of people consider them as the mentors upon mentors, and for one simple reason. That's what I want to share with you in this book today. I know I've spent some time talking about Jim as opposed to the book, but I do that for a reason. If you want to learn from people, one of the things you have to recognize is you cannot learn from someone you don't admire. And so when I read and when I study, I try to learn a little bit about the individual, himself or herself, because that gives me an insight into how they think and also how they've lived. Anyone can write a good book. Very few really live what they teach. And I find Jim to be one of the honest educators. And what I love about him, and I still like about him very much, is this. He wasn't about motivation. He wasn't about inspiring you. He was about educating you. And a lot of his philosophies and teachings didn't just speak to your physical part of who you are. It spoke to your spirit and your soul. If you've listened to any of his seminars or conferences or teachings, you could feel as though this person was speaking to the inner part of you, not just the material part of you. And so he sold the philosophy about wisdom and education, which is something that I relate to very much. I think education should precede motivation. Both are very important, but it's about getting the right balance. That's enough about Jim himself. Let's go into the book. Let me share some of my ideas with you, what I found to be interesting having read the book. Now, I made a few notes. I might refer to the notes as we go along. But he starts by talking about 7 strategies that he believes are important for having success, happiness, joy, whatever you want in life. The book is a simple read. It's very simple to read. In a way, it's as though he's talking to you. Jim had a very simple way of teaching. It wasn't about using big words. It was about using words that people could understand. Now, he was a farm boy, grew up very poor, and found a mentor, found someone who could teach him. And that person poured into his life, and then he obviously ended up becoming very wealthy, very successful, but very happy. That's the key there. He was one of those people who was happy. So in the book 7 Strategies to Wealth and Happiness, I'm recommending the book for a number of reasons. Number 1, the book doesn't provide you with information about just one part of life. It's not just about money. It's not about wealth. When people talk about wealth, we have various pictures that come to our mind. For some people, it's financial freedom. For other people, it's love, happiness, and joy. For some, it's simply just the feeling of knowing they're not in debt. And in this book, Jim focuses on 2 parts, wealth and then happiness. But on the wealth, he doesn't really focus too much on money. He shows you how to really create what's called the abundant life, which I think speaks more to me as an individual and will speak even more so to a lot of people. Now, the 7 areas that he talks about, I like. The first is he talks about goals and how to set goals. So what I like about the book and why I'm recommending the book, if you are into personal development, is it's not about just the what. Most books focus on the what to do. Jim focuses on the why. He gives you the what, then he gives you the how. He gives you strategies. Now, under the section on goals, it's a very detailed step-by-step guide on how to achieve whatever goals you want. I've read a lot of books on goals, and I personally, perhaps, there are probably about 3 or 4 people who I believe are outstanding in their understanding about how to set and achieve your goals, but also how to do it the right way. And I think Jim is one of them. And in the book 7 Keys, Strategies to Wealth and Happiness, he covers a step-by-step guide about how to set goals, but also how to choose them. But here is the key on the goals that I love about the book. He tells you not to focus on what you're going to get from the goal, from the achievement on the goal. Instead, he says, focus more on the person you're going to grow into becoming in pursuit of the goal. In other words, he's saying the goal is of secondary importance. The primary importance is the habit you're going to learn, the culture, the character, the behavior, the attitude that you're going to form as a result of pursuing that goal. And he says that is more important. Why? Because he says what you get is always a product of who you are. Now, you can lose what you get, but if you have the character, then you can reproduce it. Now, that is a profound philosophy. In the book, a lot of the nuggets of wisdom in the book come as philosophies. And the philosophy is simply how you think. The great writer says, if a man or if a mind can conceive an idea, can believe the idea, that man or that mind can achieve it. Now, I'm not being gender specific here now, so I don't want you to get excited about me using man and not woman. I'm just referring to an individual. I'm just trying to say the way the author shared that particular quote. And he's trying to say here that if you can learn how to think right, then you could achieve anything, because thinking is the highest activity we're all capable of. So on the goals, he gives you a few philosophies and then the strategies to support and back those philosophies. And so you have a step-by-step matrix that you can use to measure your progress. So the first step key that is referenced in the book is about goals. The second is about wisdom and knowledge. And I think that resonates with me the most in the book, because I believe that wisdom is the principal thing. I believe if you have wisdom, then you have leverage, because wisdom shows you how to apply the knowledge that you have. It's not about having knowledge. It's about having knowledge of the truth. Understanding the knowledge you have, expanding your awareness with the knowledge you have, and then using that knowledge acquired and the new understanding you have and the level of awareness or consciousness you have to then create the results you want through action. And so there's a section in the book that talks about knowledge, and Jim is saying you have to develop a habit, a daily habit of continuous growth and improvement. But also he was saying you have to be careful about where you get the source of knowledge, because knowledge in itself are not all created equal. There is the truth, and then there is just information. In reading the book, I came to a conclusion that all of us are ignorant in an area of life. That is normal. That's not something you should be ashamed of. That is something you should recognize and embrace. And the reason is simple. There's just too much out there in terms of information. We have to be selective about what we make our lives focus. You might choose one or two areas of life where you want to be the best of the best of the best. And all the other areas, you don't have to know everything. All you need to know is who to reach out to if you want information. And that statement alone, in my opinion, defines the difference between pursuing mastery or pursuing success. Mastery leads to fulfillment because you're growing and you're developing. Success, in many cases, you achieve it, but you don't feel content because you don't have to be exceptional to achieve material success. You just simply have to do certain things in the right way. And Wallace Wattle said that wealth is created not by doing things, but by doing things in a certain way. You can have two people doing the same thing, but one is doing it in a certain way. And so under the section of knowledge and wisdom, a lot of content is provided on how to develop more knowledge, how to apply it, and how to use the wisdom you've acquired. The next key is the area of personal development, which in itself is, I think in my opinion, if you ask me, and I'm just going to do a deviation and just share my thoughts. I came to the realization a number of years ago that the education system is incomplete. It's incomplete. We have academic education, which we need. You learn how to read and write, and that leads you into a place whereby you can choose a career. But then we also learn professional education. You decide you want to be a doctor, you want to be a surgeon, you want to be a policeman, an accountant, an engineer. Professional education, so you specialize a little bit more. And for most people, including myself, that was all I had. That was all I got formally, if you were to go through the formal route. And Jim says that, formal education will get you a living, but self-education is what creates the fortune that you want. I believe self-education is what creates happiness and joy and understanding and peace and leads you to understanding your personal greatness. And I say that because I think there are two other parts of the education system that we all need. The third, I call personal development. The fourth, I call financial education. I want to talk about the third because in this chapter, Jim talks about personal development. And in my personal life, one of the things I learned was through formal education, I learned how to use my five senses. That's the only part of my mind that I really learned how to use. Everyone has a mind. We have five senses, what we call our sensory faculties, but we also have six higher faculties. And greatness, success, happiness, prosperity, good fortune, good health is found in using your higher faculties, not using your five senses. I'll give you a good example of how this works. One of your senses is sight. We talk about sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. Now, I know I'm deviating, but just hear me out because I think it's important. Sight, sound, touch, smell, taste are your five senses. So sight will show you things using your eyes. They show you things as they are. Look around you now, you're looking and you're seeing by sight. However, those who've achieved a level of greatness and impact and success and who've made a difference in our generations were those who learned how to see beyond their sight. They learned how to use their imagination. And your imagination is one of your six higher faculties. When you see with your imagination, we call that vision. You're seeing through your mind's eye. It shows you things as they could become. And that becoming is what inspires you to go beyond an area of comfort and to journey for something much bigger. And in the pursuit of that journey, you find out your true potential, and then you find that you grow. Now, the six higher faculties are imagination, intuition, memory, will, reason, and perception. Six beautiful higher faculties. Each of those will create happiness, love, joy, understanding, peace, good fortune, prosperity, success in any area of life. But it needs training. And so in personal development in this book, Jim is saying you've got to spend time educating yourself. Try not to live by bread alone. You've got to live by feeding your mind. And he says something that I like. He says, what are you feeding your mind? Are you feeding your mind mental candy, or are you feeding your mind with junk food? Or have you found the understanding that has led you to feeding your mind with good, healthy mental food? And that comes through reading, that comes through association, that comes through what you hear, and empowering, educational, insightful information that makes you grow. Now, the next part of the book is he deals with time management, a great section about how to manage your time and why your time and how you use your time really determines the quality of your results and who you become. You know, think about this, for example. We have 7 billion people in the world today. And one of the areas where we have equality amongst everyone is in the area of time. Rich or poor, beautiful, not so beautiful, you know, tall, dark and handsome or not, yellow, green, blue, white, whatever your color might be. After all, orange is the new black, so they say. But whatever your color might be, everyone gets 24 hours. The billionaire sitting in his mansion, the beggar on the side of the road, 24 hours, no one gets any more. You can't spend more, you can't get more, you can't save it, you can't store it. And so how you use your time every day determines the outcomes of your life. And here Jim is trying to show you step by step how you should use your time better. Now, I talked about the section on goal setting previously, and now I'm talking about time. Both have a connection. You cannot effectively manage your time if you don't have goals and if you don't have priorities, if you don't have outcomes you want. So the key to really managing your time is to really be great at setting goals and having clarity on what's important in your life, because that allows you to prioritize and determine how and what you allocate your time to. Fascinating. But it's explained in the book in such a simple way that it's almost impossible for you to read the book and not have a better understanding about the concept of time. Now, Next, he talks about association. We're influenced by so many things in life, and one of the most significant influences on us are the people around us. Now, this is a classic Jim Rohn quote. Who am I around? What are they doing to me? What have they got me thinking? What have they got me reading? What have they got me saying? And who have they got me becoming? And then he concludes by asking the question, is that okay? Are you happy with the influence around you? All of us have to understand the power of influence. As a matter of fact, environment is more powerful than your genes, than heredity. You may have been born into a family, but the environment you grow up in will have more of an impact. The environment you stay in will have more of an impact than your genes. So environment is critical, association is powerful, but their influence can be very subtle. And so Jim talks about three groups of people you have to categorize your association under. The first he calls your expanded association group, your limited association group, and then your disassociation group. In other words, he's saying there are some people who shouldn't be around you because they pull you back. Now understand something, this is a law of the universe. You're either growing or you're dying, creating or disintegrating, moving forward or moving backward. Nothing stays the same. We're always going through change. So there is no such thing as a neutral relationship. Your relationships are either helping you become the best self that you can be, or they're pulling you back. And so Jim says that there is a group of people around you that you have to stop associating with if you want to achieve your goals and dreams. That they will limit you, they will hold you back, they'll plant seeds of doubt in your consciousness, in your thoughts, in your feelings. The second group is the group of people who perhaps they don't bring out the best in you. You cannot have them separated from your life. So he says you simply limit the exposure of your time to them, and you manage how much they influence your thoughts and your mind. And he says limit your association with those in this group. The third and the final is what we call the expanded group. People of substance, people who are achieving great goals, people who are happy, people who you would consider to be mentors, people who are living the life you want to live. Now, for many of us, we may not have access to all of the role models we want, but that's the beauty of social media. Social media has reduced what we used to call 6 degrees of separation. For those who don't understand what that concept means, it simply meant so many years ago, if you were to pick someone randomly and let's assume this person is in somewhere in the United States. If that person was trying to get to me in London, that the person could connect to me within 6 steps. So they knew someone who 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 perhaps knows me. That's what's called the 6 degrees of separation. Now with social media, it's down to 1. So you can tweet, you can reach out to someone on any other social media platforms, and in a few minutes you can connect with someone that you perhaps never would have had the opportunity to so many years ago. That's the beauty of social media. So there are people we have to expand our association with. We can do that in various ways. Personal connection, if you can. Access to their materials. So if you haven't read this book, by reading the book, you're expanding your association. Why? Because you're now allowing someone's idea to influence you. What is a book? A book is simply an author's ideas painted in pictures and captured in words. And those words influence you. So you can have association by reading someone's material, by listening to a recording of someone's teaching. That's how you get influenced. And the whole point is this: you want to spend your time with people who are successful. Now, a concept called modeling is something that I will probably spend some time talking about in maybe some other session. I started my journey to discovering myself when I made a decision that I was going to try and live not on my mind alone, but by allowing other great minds to influence my thinking. And that decision I made required a simple principle called replicability. Replicability is simply the process or the ability to replicate something. I started studying successful people so many years ago, and I decided that I was going to learn from them, learn their habits, learn how they thought and their thinking process, that I was going to learn a little bit about how they lived, their lifestyle, learn about their character, and then I was going to model myself on them. And I made that decision very easily because the results I had created so far, which were based on my beliefs and my knowledge, it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted more. And so I concluded that what I knew wasn't sufficient to get me to the future that I wanted. Here is another side note. I know I'm jumping all around, but I hope you're finding something useful here. You're not in the future that you want. You're not experiencing the life that you want. And the reason is because you haven't qualified for it. And you qualify for it by expanding your consciousness. You see, you and I, if we want to have our dreams, number one, we must have the courage to ask for what we want. Number two, we must have the faith and belief to expect that it will happen. But number three, we must have the consciousness to be able to receive it. And that consciousness comes through study, comes through hard work, and comes through commitment and sacrifice. And so I decided so many years ago to start modeling myself on successful people. And I started reaching out to people who were doing much better and who were living the life that I wanted to live. And I did that for a simple reason. I was trying to expand my association to allow new ideas and new principles and philosophies and beliefs to come into my life and help me achieve my goals and dreams. Many people ask the wrong question like I used to. I remember growing up, if I heard something that was different to what I knew, I would reject it because I felt this is not what I've been taught. And then I made a change a number of years ago where I started to ask a different question. The question was, can this information, though different, can it help me achieve my dreams and goals? And whenever the answer was yes, irrespective of whether it was different to what I had learned, I made a decision to welcome it. And that's what I want to suggest you do. In the book, 7 Strategies to Wealth and Happiness, you'll find a lot of ideas that are different to what you already know. Ask yourself the same question and then welcome it. Now, the last 2 sections of the book are important. He talks about financial freedom, a very important topic. How do we achieve and how do I achieve financial freedom? I have had the gift. I call it a gift because it's not that I deserve it. Yes, you might say you worked hard for it, but I believe in grace, and I believe that my life is a picture of a lot of grace that I've received. And grace is something that sometimes you can't explain. It's just good things happen to you, good fortune and good things that you can't really explain. But I consider myself to have received the gift of being able to achieve financial freedom. And here is the point I want to say about that. It's not about what you have. I still have a lot of dreams of things I want to achieve. But what that helped me do, it helped me to reset my life and ask myself a simple question. What do I want to be remembered for? And so it took my focus away from success, and I'm now focused on legacy. 100 years from now, how would I want to be remembered? And when you can eliminate the burden of money, you find that you have a lot of time. Now you can sit down and ask yourself some very important questions. And one of the questions I ask myself, in addition to how will I want to be remembered, is what am I here for? To answer the question about legacy, you've got to answer the question about purpose, because both are connected. Your purpose is what you do. Your legacy is the remembrance based on how you executed your purpose and how you lived. And that allowed me to start making changes. Part of what I'm sharing with you now is part of my life's passion now and purpose and my life's mission. But Jim talks about financial freedom, and he gives you some interesting concepts on how to achieve financial freedom. You know, the principle of it's not what you get that matters, it's what you do with what you have. In other words, the formula he talks about is based on the principle of the richest man in Babylon, and he recommends it in the book. He says, this is the book that made a change to my thinking and helped me start changing my financial life. And the principle follows a simple formula, a formula based on allocating a portion of what you earn to invest in, dedicating a portion of it to making a difference in someone's life by charitable causes or benevolence, and then learning to live on the budget of what's left. Great chapter as well. And then finally, one thing that I think Jim is really known for is he talks about lifestyle. How do you live? How do you design that life? How do you design the life that is worth sharing and emulating? Because you can have all the money, you can have all the material possessions, but still not have a great life. And Jim talks about it in the final chapter of the book. How do you fashion? And he uses that word, fashion. How do you fashion for yourself the good life? 7 chapters that are profound. Now, in a way, that's a very quick summary. Much more in the book. Now, the book comes in both written form, but also there's an audio version. The audio version is available on YouTube. You can get it for free. A lot of Jim's books are based off his teaching. Again, I said very simple strategies, very simple philosophies. And I like the reference because he draws in a lot of examples from his journey, starting from nothing, but also journeying and learning along the way. And so there are a lot of examples on how he has applied some of this, what he called truths, and how he continues to grow every day. So let me summarize by saying this: 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness, if you haven't got it, by Jim Rohn, is certainly worth having. It's one of those books that I think you would read and look back at, you realize that is perhaps one of the cornerstone to your improvement and your life growth and your personal development. But let me make another recommendation. Spend about 5-10 minutes, if you can, and go on YouTube and just search for Jim Rohn. And you'll see some of his videos. Very different style, but listen to his videos for about 10 minutes and it'll give you an insight to what his message is and the theme of his teachings. He's more of a teacher. I think of him and the word teacher comes to my mind. And so if you have a passion to learn, he's going to be the right person for you. Through his education, you get inspiration and motivation. It's a weird arrangement, but that's how it works for him, which I like as well. He doesn't do any pump-up motivation, and he doesn't believe in you affirming yourself if you're not willing to pay the price. So one of his sayings is, only affirm that which you're willing to do. Now, that's where I stop for today. I hope you found something useful. I want to wish you the best of luck, and I hope you find some successful nuggets of wisdom should you get the book or should you listen to his teachings. Take care, and God bless.